Welcome back to Around the Globe Baseball. We are back, and Dale Scott is back. Totally honored to have him on the show again. Dale, thank you so much for giving us your time. I just can't wait to talk more. Especially, I have finished your book since our last talk. Could you give me and the new fans a little bit talk about what your book is truly about?
Well, it's obviously a bestseller, at least in my mind. But I'm glad that you finished it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's a memoir. It's my 37 years in professional baseball, 5 of those in the minor leagues, a couple tours of duty in the winter ball in the Dominican Republic, and then 32 years in the big leagues. And when you spend that much time umpiring professional baseball, you're going to have stories. And so I've got quite a few, both from my minor league days and also in the big leagues, and I was very fortunate to work almost 4,000 games, 3 World Series, 91 postseason games. So a lot to cover there, which is a lot of fun. It's also a second type book is the journey that I took personally, growing up in Eugene, Oregon, and starting to umpire and going to umpire school and coming out, being actively trying to make sure nobody knew that I was gay when I got into baseball for various reasons. The main one basically was the fact that I wouldn't be promoted or, certainly wouldn't make it to the big leagues if they had found out, but also because I literally started my professional baseball career as an umpire 2 weeks after the very first reported cases of these rare cancers affecting young, healthy men in San Francisco and New York. And of course, that was the start of the AIDS epidemic in 1981. And that's when I started my professional career. So I knew not only I didn't want anybody to know who I was or, who I really was, because it would affect me getting promoted or my dream of getting to the big leagues. But I also didn't want anybody to know because with the AIDS epidemic and it was such a scary time, those first several years in the 80s, that nobody would even want to work with me. And so it was, imperative for me to keep my secret. And then I go, fast forward to 2014 when I came out publicly as the first active male sports official in the Big Five sports to come out. So I went full circle in that. It talks about my journey doing that, and so it's a baseball book. It's a human interest book, I guess, and I had a lot of fun writing it, and I've had great feedback from it. I also I narrated the audiobook, so my years in radio paid off a little bit, so I could read my own book. But it was a lot of fun doing it. Like I said, I'm thrilled that you, Tyler, that you liked it. I mean, Taylor and not Tyler. I know a Tyler, but Taylor.
All good.
Listen, I've been called worse. But I'm glad you. And what was? Do you remember like one of your favorite stories or things about the book that you liked?
Oh, yeah. Honestly, this is what I want to kind of talk about a little bit more. Just for how long you umpired, I was fascinated by just the players that you got to umpire. Like, nevertheless, the games, the big important games, like you said, World Series, postseason, but like the players, like how you've seen pitchers from like Nolan Ryan and then going all the way umping through like 2017. And maybe I was wondering if you see like evolution in the players, especially like the steroids era and then that all breaking loose and then baseball changing. I was just honestly fascinated to see all the stories. You have all your own experiences in the stories, but then you can tell, like, based on the era in baseball you are, or how much they talk to you. Like back then, it seemed like talking like at an ump or really getting at him is seemed more common than now. Like it still happens, but it did seem very enhanced back then.
Well, I got to the big leagues in 1986, and a lot changed
Yeah.
from 1986 until I got out in 2017, and then since 2017, a lot has changed in baseball with the different rules and things are going on. Yeah, I saw a lot. I mean, when I broke in, Bob Boone was catching. I worked behind Bob Boone. Yogi Berra was with the Yankees. My first American League spring training in 1985, and so you go from that to the modern day. I mean, I saw just some incredible players. I was on the field for some just unbelievable moments. That it's funny when you're working, you're like a hamster on a wheel, right? The season is just constantly you're on the go. As umpires, we don't have a home base. We're traveling all the time. And then you hit the off season, and you're preparing really for the next season, and it's just, that's your mindset. It wasn't until I retired and kind of stepped away, and writing the book helped with this, but I was finally able to kind of step back and take in all the things that I was a part of. When you're doing it, you're just doing it. I mean, yeah, I realized that was a really historic World Series or this or that, but you don't have really time to dwell on that, or really put it in perspective, because you're on to the next thing, right? It's an ongoing thing. But since I've gotten away and stepped away from the game, I have been able to kind of sit back, and I've had people say that too. They go, "My goodness, I read your book. You were on the field for some incredible things, different situation. It wasn't all just postseason either, just things during the season, or milestones by players, or whatever. So that's been kind of fun since I've left the field, is to be able to kind of take it all in, and realize, I'll be watching a game, or I'll have MLB Network on or something, and there'll be an oldies game, that I'm working, and I'll think, first of all, I go, my God, who is that? It's so young. That dude is so young and thin. I mean, what the hell is that all about? But I'll see things that I'll just go, oh my God, it'll spark a memory here, or spark a memory there. It's just I was blessed. I had an outstanding career, and I got to see a lot of things, and that's what I tried to translate in the book. And you're right. Some of the names of the players that I talk about in some of these stories are, some of them are just absolute legends. I mean, you've got the Ripkins, you've got Kirby Puckett, you have, Randy Johnson, you obviously Ken Griffey Jr. I mean, there's just a lot of history there, and it's kind of fun now to sit back and figure out that, man, believe it or not, Scotty, you were. I mean, when I started umpire when I was 15 in Eugene at the Madison Junior High, if somebody would have said, "Hey, by the way, you're going to spend 32 years in the big leagues and work 3 World Series," and I'll say, "Right," and that stuff you're smoking is really good, because that would be insane for me to think that. But that's what happened. So I was a pretty lucky guy.
Um, just a question. Is there any particular altercation or conversation with a player that you remember in particular as like just something that sticks out to you? Like just any particular conversation or altercation you had with any player, just in particular over your career?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I remember some of the arguments. Arguments were a lot different back then. I sound like, back then we go, walk to school uphill, the whole thing. But seriously, with replay now, you that's changed the whole dynamic of arguments and that kind of stuff. But it was the Wild West at times when I first broke in, and with some of the managers. I had Billy Martin. I was the last umpire to ever eject Billy Martin. We had Dick Williams, who was a sarcastic SOB. he 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 had a way with words, let's put it that way. And then I had Earl Weaver, he retired, and then he came back a couple of years later. I had him in that when he came back, and I never ejected him, but I do remember one time with Earl, he loved it from the dugout. He'd whistle, try to get your attention, whistle. You look over, and then he would, high and low the pitch or whatever. And one time at Old Memorial Stadium in Baltimore, which, by the way, I worked the last 3 games there before they shut that thing down. But Earl went to talk to his pitcher. His pitcher was struggling a little bit. So now he comes, as he's going back to the dugout, he kind of beelines it toward me. And he said, he comes up, I'm thinking to myself, okay, here we go. What's going to happen here? And he said, those pitches aren't high. I was calling balls on his pitcher, and I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "So when you're hitting, then you're okay if I call those strikes?" he said, "I didn't say that. I didn't say that." I go, "Well, I think I know exactly what you're saying, Earl." So I thought that was a kind of an interesting conversation with him. But yeah, you remember stuff. I remember when I threw out Dennis Eckersley after he had blown a save, and the game was going to the extra innings in Milwaukee, and he called me the C word and tried to spit on me. I remember that quite well. Yeah. There's things, and what's so funny is you have so many games and so many situations that when when I'm on a podcast or I'm in an interview or I'm with some other umpires and we're telling war stories or whatever, but somebody will say something, or something will spark a memory that I haven't thought about in a long time. And boom, it's like, oh man, I remember this one time and blah, 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 and you go into something else that you hadn't even talked about in quite a while. So there's just a lot of things up there. But yeah, those are a couple examples of times that I do remember what was said.
Yeah, when you talk about, I mean, obviously calling balls and strikes, was there a specific pitcher that was the hardest to call for? I mean, I know you see catchers more nowadays do framing, and that's where all the arguments come in, like because they frame it so well and it's a ball they made look a strike. But was there just a pitcher in general, whether it's because they could throw 100 or the break was just insane, that was really
Well,
difficult to call?
yeah, I had a few. I mean, Randy Johnson, when he was on, and first of all, at 6'11" or whatever he was, on a 10-inch mound, and his big stride and long arms, by the time he delivered the pitch, it looked like he was about 10 feet from you. I mean, he's right there. And Randy was such a competitor, uh, pretty decent guy when it wasn't his day to pitch. When his days of pitch, I heard clubhouse guys and even other teammates of him saying, "Hey, when it's Randy's day to pitch, you don't look him in the eye. You just stay clear of him. Just stay away because he's on this, zone that he's in." But I mean, he threw some just nasty stuff. I had Nolan Ryan a few times, which even the last couple of years of his career, the man could pitch. I mean, the couple times I saw him where he was really successful was, yeah, he was throwing the heater and he was, hitting his spots, but he was getting guys out because a couple other pitches were working, his changeup, his curveball, and they didn't, when they're all working like that, it's really not very fair, quite frankly, because they just don't know what to do. But I saw him, I had Roger Clemens. I had other guys that maybe weren't as big in names, but at the time they were. Tommy John. I had Tommy John. Tommy John was a guy. He didn't throw a lot of heat. I mean, this was after obviously the surgery that they named after him. But before that surgery, I'm not sure what they called it. But now it's Tommy John surgery. But he could hit spots amazingly, and he wasn't throwing 100. He maybe is at times, especially nowadays, seems like, oh my goodness, he's throwing, he's lobbing it up there, but it wasn't quite that bad. But he could hit spots, and what he would do is he would throw a pitch, outside a couple inches, you ball it. Then he'd throw a pitch about another inch in, he ball it, and he'll find where you find that strike. Okay, that's where you're going to call a strike, and then he'll just pound that, and most of the time he could hit it. He was amazing that way. I had knuckleball pitchers. Charlie Huff had a knuckleball that could do some very strange things. And as a young umpire, never really seen a knuckleball in the minor leagues. The knuckleball is, you throw out basically everything that you learn as an umpire because the knuckleball doesn't do those things. I mean, it's a pitch that the hitter can't hit it and the catcher can't catch it, but by God, if you're the umpire, you better not miss it. And that it's like, wait a minute. But the one thing I learned from knuckleball, especially when the guy's he's on, it's working, is take your time, because that thing will be a ball all the way in and just boom, right at the last minute, just float through the zone, or vice versa. But also I learned that not only take your time, but you're constantly thinking strikes. You're constantly thinking calling strikes, because nobody knows if it was or not. I mean, it's the way the thing moved. If nobody really knows, you might as well call strikes instead of balls, because that way at least guys are starting to swing the bat and things are rolling. So that was an interesting thing to learn how to umpire a knuckleball guy. But yeah, there was a lot of outstanding pitchers that I worked, through the years, and then I saw a lot of outstanding hitters. Kirby Puckett was a great hitter. Wade Boggs, I think he would have been better off just coming up to the plate with two strikes, because when he had two strikes, that's when he was, I think, the most dangerous. I mean, he could just protect the plate until he got something that he could, go the opposite way or whatever, and get his base hit. So I, saw a lot of those guys. And of course, when I was 26 when I got hired. I turned 27 in August of that first year in 1986. So, I was, and I looked every bit of 26, I think. So I was a young guy, and some of these crusty veterans, and of course, at any time there's new meat in an umpire uniform, they're they're going to test you and throw some things your way to see how you handle it. And I certainly got that too. So it was all a learning experience, and it was I look back on it now and I smile, but there were some days that I wasn't smiling very much.
Circling back to, closer to the time of your retirement, is there like any player in like the current era, like more recently particular, that stuck out to you that you were, umpiring in a game that he pitched in, did whatever in? Is there one that kind of stuck out to you?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, the last full season that I worked was 2016. I got hurt in 2017, our fifth game of the season. So it was mid-April. And so I really obviously missed that entire year. So, there's certainly guys that more recently, that you admired. Yeah, I mean, Mike Trout is a outstanding player, obviously, and the injury bug has kind of bit him a little bit, and the we can't win games Angels bug has also hit him just a little bit, but which is unfortunate. But he's a pretty good guy. I mean, he's a decent guy. I remember I had I think it was his first year where he was playing quite a bit. I called him out on, he tried to stretch a single into a double in Oakland one night, and close play at second base, and I called him out. Now this was before we had replay, and he kind of jumped on. And he said, "Oh, Dale, I got in, I got a tag." And here comes the manager. I'm trying to think who the manager was. I've had concussions, so this is what happened. But anyway, he comes out. It was Sosha, Mike Sosha, of course, and he comes out and he said, "Dale, this guy never argues. I mean, if I see him arguing, I think you got to be wrong." I said, "Well, I don't know if he argues or not, Mike, but this is what I got." Well, after the game, I go in the locker room. I look at the replay. I was wrong. He was safe. And so the next day, we're walking out, and it just so happened to be his birthday. And the only reason I knew that, I'd read it in the paper, when I was having lunch earlier. And they're in Oakland. Of course, the Angels are going to bat first, and he's leadoff, so he's right there when we're walking out. So I said, "Hey, Mike," I said, "by the way, happy birthday." And he kind of looked at me and he goes, "Oh, hey, thanks." And I said, "I got to look at that play that I had last night. You're absolutely right. I missed that." He goes, "Hey, don't worry about it. It happens. It's close." And I said, "Well, no, I just wanted to let you know that I mean, as an umpire, all you ask is for a guy to be fair. I mean, if depending on who it is, if I see a play that I missed the night before or a pitch, I'll say something to him. Not everybody, because some guys will use that against you the next time you have a close play. They'll say, "Oh, well, did you do that one?" And they'll use that to try to stick it to you, and then you have no time for them. But a guy that seems like a decent guy. I remember Derek Jeter, who, by the way, his whole career was never ejected one time, which is kind of amazing, really. But Derek Jeter was a guy that owned New York, right? I mean, the Yankees had 3 or 4 world championships. I mean, they were flying. He was the captain. He was good looking young guy. He owned New York. He could do whatever he wanted. And he's also a guy that all he would have to do on at bat on a pitch that he didn't like is just drop his shoulders or just give a little body language. Wouldn't have to say a word, and he would have the entire stadium on your rear end as an umpire, and certainly the dugout. But he rarely played that game. I mean, that's not that's not the way he was. That's just not his makeup. But I remember I called him out on strikes, and he said, and again, he's a guy that not only has a good eye, but he doesn't complain a lot. So when they do, you think, okay, maybe he's got something going. So he said, "Dale, that pitch is outside." And I said, "I got it on the plate, Derek." He goes, as he's walking away, I said, "I'll take a look at it." And I did. And the next day, as they're warming up before the game started there, and we ran out, I had third base, but I kind of cruised over by where he was warming up. And I said, "Hey, Derek," I said, I had a chance to take a look at that. I believe you were right. I think that was a bit outside." And he goes, "Hey, that's good." See, it shows them if you have a good enough rapport and a relationship with a player, it shows them that, hey, listen, I can admit when I'm wrong. I'm not almighty and never make a mistake. Now, it's certainly not something you want to do all the time, because then you have no credibility. And like I said, there's certain players that you absolutely just wouldn't do that with at all. You would never do it because they're not interested in trying to find out the truth. They're interested in trying to use something to use against you later on. So but I don't even know what the question was. But those are a couple stories about some of the players I had. But yeah, it's a game of personalities a lot, and I could walk on with my crew, and let's say that manager, one of the managers that night, I don't get along with all, but the other three guys do for whatever reason, or I get along with this guy pretty well, but or there's one guy on the crew that somebody on one of those teams, they had him in the minor leagues or something, and they just have a little history or something, and so how I would deal with a Tony La Russa, so to speak, for example, how I deal with him might be completely different than my Dan Isonia, who's on my crew, and how he would deal with him. Now, we're hoping for the same result, that you keep a guy in the game and you get everything tamped down and we move on and that kind of stuff. But it might be two completely different ways of doing it, depending on how the relationship you have with that certain player or manager. So it's a lot of stuff going on out there.
Now, kind of following up on that, who was the most difficult manager to deal with whenever they would come out and state their case, argue their point, whatever it may be, that you can just remember, particularly?
Well, for whatever reason, I could not get along with Cito Gaston, the Blue Jays manager, who had the back-to-back World Series in the '90s. I don't know why. I mean, I never had Cito in the minor leagues. I didn't know who Cito Gaston was until he started managing the Blue Jays. But he was the type of guy, like relationship wise, where we just could not see eye to eye. If I said, today's Wednesday, he'd say, no, it's Thursday. If I said today's a day game, he'd say, nope, it's a night game. I mean, we just couldn't figure it out. Now, I think I only ejected him 2 or 3 times. I know I got La Russa at least 3. I mean, there's some guys I've got more than that, but Cito was just a guy that he just did not believe me. I remember the first pitch of the game in Skydome. Ricky Henderson was leading off for the A's. And first pitch of the game, I called a ball, and he goes, "There we go, there we go."
It's a warm welcome right there.
I said, and I'm like, this. I mean, the over under on if he's still going to be here in the 3rd inning is probably take the under. But it's sometimes you just have that. The best one I wrote in the book is in Texas. They didn't like my strike zone. And so Cito goes out to talk to his pitcher, And of course, he's out there just to get me out there. And so I thought, well, here we go. So I walk out and he starts, "Hey, Dale, those my guys are saying those pitches are good pitches." And I said, "Cito, we're not going to talk about balls and strikes. You know that." And he said, "The F we aren't," and he starts, and so boom, I run him. And he goes, "You know what? I'm sick and tired of this. I am so sick and tired of this. Why don't, after the game, meet me outside the stadium? We'll take care of this once and for all." And I'm writing down at the line. I go, "Oh, that's great." I said, "Dr. Bobby Brown was the American League president. And that's who our boss was as umpires." And I said, "Dr. Brown would be thrilled that you're threatening his umpires." And Cito goes, "F Dr. Brown." I go, "Well, he'll be thrilled with that too." Because that's going right in the report. So Cito was a guy that I just had trouble with. Tony La Russa, I think I ran 3 times. I had Tony, a long time with the A's, and when we started working both leagues with the Cardinals. And Tony's an intense competitor, and you see Tony off the field, nicest guy, chit chat and laugh and smile, and the moment he steps on that field, steps in that dugout in uniform, he is just I mean, they're all competitors, don't get me wrong, but Tony had this fire in him, so so he would confound you a little bit. I mean, I've been so angry at him with an ejection, something that went on. I one night in Atlanta when he was in St. Louis, I ran, I got the hat trick. I got 3 Cardinals. I don't know if I won, wow. I won something with that, a microwave or something. But anyway, so the ejection with Tony was pretty intense. We were going after each other pretty good. Well, the next day, I'm at third base, and the Cardinal dugout there in Atlanta, or the visiting dugout, is third base at the old stadium. I don't know if it is the new one now, but we do our lineups. He didn't come out for the line cards with a coach, which is normal. And there are lineups. I run out to third base. They're throwing it around, and I hear, "Dale, I'm I'm thinking, is that Tony? So I look over, and Tony had come all the way to the outfield end of the dugout. I couldn't hear him at first, so he got up on the step to get my attention. I looked over, and he just gave me a salute, like it's a brand new day, and I did the same thing, and I'm thinking, I'm supposed to be mad at you, Tony, and now you're doing something that's classy. He's saying it's a new day, which I mean, the last game of the World Series, Boston swept them. They broke the curse in 2004, and Game 4, 3 and 4 were in St. Louis. The series is over. They just swept them. In Old Busch Stadium, the 6 of us umpires, I had the left field line, so I was the last guy to get to our room. But we went to right behind home plate. There's a little runway thing, and we take a left and go right into our clubhouse. And so, we're all walking in, we have security and stuff. We right when we get in the clubhouse, we're all high-fiving and stuff because we're done. We're done. We got through a series. There was no issues. The pressure is now off, and we get to go home for a few months. But it was really strange because I felt like there was somebody behind me as I was kind of walking in, and I turned around, and it's Tony La Russa. Now, he had just got swept. Obviously that's not the way to his clubhouse. I mean, he from the dugout, they just go up their tunnel, right? But he had come out and followed us into our room. His eyes were watery, like teary-eyed almost. They just, like I said, they just got swept. And right when we saw him, we all just, oh, hey, Tony, we're trying to be, I mean,
It's like, what did we do wrong?
Yeah, well, exactly. Plus we'd been hyped. Oh, hey, Tony, how are you? Everything's good. And he goes, I just wanted to come in and tell you guys you had a great series. You had a great season. He shook all our hands. He goes, have an outstanding off season. Boom. And off he goes. And you go, here's a guy that it just killed him that he just got swept in the World Series. And here's a guy that can be as intense as anybody, yet he can also be so classy by doing something like that. There's the losing manager saying that. And trust me, when you get a compliment from the team that lost, or, that is sincere, it's a lot of points. It just credits, because first of all, they don't have to do that, and second of all, you figure it's pretty sincere if they just lost and they're still telling you that they thought you did a good job. So anyway, that's the when I was talking earlier about relationships, and that's just kind of some of the stuff that you have that people never see. That it's not, it doesn't make any headlines, or it's not reported or whatever, but it's all part of what we do, and basically we're just enforcing the rules and trying to have a fair game for both teams. And part of that is managing people. Just, sometimes you have to yell and be real aggressive to try to get things calmed down. Other times you just hardly say anything, let them just, get tired of barking and go off. So, I mean, it's almost psychology sometimes when you're out there dealing with players and managers.
Yeah, you got me thinking. It's a little bit different of a topic, but you're mentioning the Blue Jays, and then you threw like the words playoffs in there. And I know, like, one of your most iconic games, I've seen you talk about it before, the Jose Bautista bat flip game, which then later the next year you umpired a series between those two, and it was the fight when probably you thought it would be over because they've already played in the regular season. What were both of those games like for you? And just what were your thoughts when you umped them the next year, being like, oh God, the tension is there. What am I going to get myself into?
Well, that was one of the craziest game 5s of the division series, one of the craziest games ever. I mean, the way that 7th inning took like an hour and 10 minutes. Not to spend a lot of time, catching up on it, but the Rangers went ahead 3-2. I think it was 3-2, but they went ahead by a run in the top of the 7th, when Russell Martin, the catcher, with Odor on third and 2 outs, tie game. Russell Martin throwing the ball back to the pitcher that he's done 1,000 million times, got lazy, and Shu, the hitter, left-handed Korean hitter for the Rangers, he took a ball and he's just kind of doing his routine. He was not doing anything illegal. And when he throws the ball, got a little sloppy, it went off Chu's bat and went flying up the third baseline, basically. And so Odor comes in and scores. That's the go ahead run. And originally when that happened, I had called time, which I should not have done, but then I realized immediately that ball's alive, and we sorted through it and we scored the run anyway, because there was no chance that there was nobody even close to the ball for Toronto to make a play. So me calling time had zero to do with the guy scoring or not. But getting through all that process with John Gibbons, the manager of Toronto, who protested the game. We don't have protests anymore, but at the time we did. And I had never been protests in 30 plus years of professional baseball. And I'd never seen a catcher do that in 30 plus years, not with a runner on base. I did see it one time with nobody on, but anyway, it was a mess. And I went against Toronto, and those fine people up there were very angry. They were, and they're hockey fans, so that, they can show some anger sometimes. They're not just passive baseball fans. Anyway, they were throwing stuff on the field. We had to clear the field. We had 2 ejections out of the Toronto dugout. I had the protested game. This all went on. So now we go to the bottom of the 7th, and uncharacteristically, got that out. The Rangers, I think, made 2 errors that half inning. It might have been 3, but I mean, they gave Toronto a bunch of extra outs, or otherwise, none of this would have happened. But the game was tied. There was a couple runners on, and Batista comes up with 2 outs, and the place was rocking now because they had tied it up because of these errors and everything else. And he launched a home run that I think landed in Winnipeg, and it was, sometimes when a guy swings and immediately it's out, or you think there's no way, I don't think it's going to go out, and it does, and you go, oh wow, or he crushed that, and then the wind hits it or something. Well, this one there, we're in a dome, but this one there was no doubt. I mean, he hit this thing and it was gone, and this place erupted. Loudest crowd I've ever heard, and I've heard some loud ones. And of course, being in a dome helps with acoustics on that, but just place went up for grabs. Of course, he did the famous huge bat flip that pissed off the Rangers. Had a bench clear after that, blah, blah, blah. Well, series is over. Toronto wins. Texas is eliminated. Next year, we get our schedule, and we get the schedule for the year. And I'm looking at it, and in May, we have the Blue Jays at Texas. Now, they only meet 2 times the whole year. About 3 weeks earlier, they had met for 3 games. They were going to meet for 3 games in Toronto. So I told my crew, I said, well, boys, you better strap it on, because in May we have these 2 teams that have not been able to settle this bat flip stuff. And they're going to, I'm sure that's going to happen. But I said, we may be lucky. Maybe they're going to get it all out up there in Toronto when they first meet. And it'll be out of their system by the time. Well, no. They went up to Toronto. It was like church. They had 3 games. Nothing happened. So now they're in Texas. We have 3 games. First game, nothing happened. Second game, nothing happened. We're going, we're all aware. And now we're in the getaway game. Now, this is, like I said, mid-May. They don't see each other again the rest of the season. So if something's going to happen, it's got to happen here soon. And it did. 7th inning, I believe. Batista, he gets hit by a pitch. Shocking. But it took that long for him to do it. I mean, the other times he was up, I think there were guys on or something, whatever. But anyway, so he's not happy. We immediately put out warnings, which we were ready to do. And I'm at first base. I'm working first base, and Batista gets to first, and he's not happy, and he's saying things in Spanish that I just don't like his tone. I have no idea what he was saying, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't very nice. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, they hit him. Is that the end of it? I mean, if we're lucky, we won't have a double play ball, or we won't have a base hit where he's going from first to third and he's going to be sliding into third, or we won't have him later on maybe trying to score. Hopefully, a guy will fly out or strike out or something, and this thing will be over, right? Yeah, that didn't happen. So it's a double play ball, and to third base, and they throw to second, and Batista goes in, just crushes Odor trying to make the pivot to throw to first. And obviously it's interference, and we have a double play. But as a first base umpire, they get the out at second. I know Batista's going in hard, but I can't sit with that. Of course, we have another guy there, but I got to watch the throw, because if he gets a throw off, I got to play it first, right? Well, he got a throw off, but it didn't get a first. It was like trickling between first and right field, because he got upended. And I started to follow the ball just instinct as you do. And then I saw the Ranger dugout there is on the first base side. So I'm following the ball, the corner of my eye, I see all this movement. And the whole Ranger dugout is running onto the field. I thought, I think I'll let this ball go. Let's go see what's going on over here. So,
Smart move.
and it was on. I didn't actually see the hit Odor put on him when it happened, because that's when the ball was trickling away or whatever. But when you see it on replay, it is it is absolutely. I give Batista credit. He never went down. He never went down. I mean, that was a shot. And of course the bench is cleared, and we just had a melee. I mean, we had Gibbons had already been ejected earlier in the game by Danny Isonia for on pitches. I had ejected the first base coach because he wanted to scream and balk when there was no balk, and I finally just had enough and got rid of him. Then we had the bench clearing, and we ran I think 3 guys off each team. So now we're at 8, and then when Texas came up, the bottom of that inning, sure as heck, the first guy up, they hit him. So now the pitcher's gone and the acting manager is gone. So we had, I think 10 or 12 ejections for that game. It was a getaway game. Of course, we have to write an umpire report. And so, I think I hired a secretary because we had so much to write that we had so much, I mean, that was incredible. But it was one of those things, like I said, they had 6 games that year. The 3 in Toronto, nothing happened. The first 2 with us, nothing happened. The first 5-6 innings with us in the third game, nothing happened. And we're all looking at each other going, it's going to happen. I mean, there's no way they're going to get through this without, something happening. And of course, it certainly did. It was I've seen a few fights in baseball in my years, but there were only 2 where there was some real shots, real hits. That one, and one way back in in '94, the one that Eckersley called me the C word when Milwaukee and Oakland had there was some real actual shot. It wasn't one of your baseball brawls where they all get out, and then once he gets held back, he gets really angry, and then and everybody's kind of do-si-doing around a little bit. This one was real, so it was quite something.
What did you think when seeing the Tim Anderson Jose Ramirez one this
Oh
year?
yeah,
That's probably a fight with a true shot for the first time since probably the Jose Bautista and Odor one. Like, I actually can't think of another.
Yeah. I mean, there's been some historic ones in the past. I remember one. I remember hearing about it. Juan Marichal with the Giants and the Dodgers, and he grabbed a bat. He was going to pound the crap out of somebody with a bat. I think baseball frowns on that a little bit. There's been some shots here and there through the years, but most of the time there's not. There's a lot of yelling and grabbing guys and posturing and that kind of stuff. But like I said, those 2 that I was on the field for were real shot. And you see that Batista shot. It's like, I remember we had Texas about, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks later, and between innings I was working second. I said, "Hey," I said, have you had a few umpires come up and congratulate you on your hit? He goes, the whole staff. He said everybody came up, the whole staff is saying, nice shot on Batista. Batista's a very aggressive player, a very intense player, not the most well-liked guy. I mean, he had his issues, and so when he took that shot, I think a lot of players around the league and certainly a lot of the umpires going, well, couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Yeah, that was a incredible hit.
I know that each ballpark obviously has their own unique quirks, like all that kind of stuff, dimensions, so forth. Was there any ballpark that was particularly difficult to umpire at, whether it be home plate or wherever you may be umpiring? Was there any ballpark that you just didn't like to umpire?
Well, I liked the park, but it was a semi-umpire nightmare, and that's Fenway. Fenway's just got a lot of quirks, a lot of lines, a lot of any park that has a lot of potential for spectator interference is not friendly to umpires. When you hear that this ballpark is fan friendly, well, that tells us it's an umpire nightmare usually. And so that we change our rotation a little bit in Fenway because of the Green Monster, because you can hit it off that and only end up with a single, or what should in most ballparks would be almost a sure double, and yet you have a play at second. So we kind of change how we do coverages there. Wrigley was not so much of a challenge. I mean, I love the netting or the bucket or whatever they call it on home runs there, because that just took we didn't have to decide anything. It's either out or in, which was nice for us. But you had hardly any foul ground down the lines. You had, at that time, you still had the bullpens on the field, which is kind of a pain because there's extra issues if fair balls or thrown balls go down there. There's a lot of. I was fortunate to end the lifespan of a lot of parks and see the beginning of the lifespan of the new ones. I mean, I worked the last series in Baltimore's Memorial Stadium. I worked the last series. I had the plate the last game in Arlington, Texas, what they call the erector set. That was 2 stadiums ago now. That was also George Brett and Nolan Ryan's last game. They both retired. That was the last game of the season. So I saw that. The Kingdome, that was, living in Portland, the Kingdome was we don't have a home park. I mean, but that was the nearest one to my home and a lot of relatives and stuff, but it was a tomb. I mean, the Kingdome was like, especially, being from the Northwest, when you have beautiful summer weather, we cherish that because, we get a lot of rain. So when we have it, it is absolutely gorgeous. And then what a great day for a game in a tomb. You'd go into the Kingdome and it was just, could be very depressing. The Metrodome in Minnesota, you could lose the ball so easy in that saran wrap or whatever the hell they had up for the roof. That was just a weird, right now, by far the worst park is Tampa. I mean, I call it arena baseball because you have all these rings and stuff. And if it's off that one, you play it. But if it's off that one, it's a home run and this and that.
Ceiling is white.
What's that? Yeah.
Right, hard to keep track of the ball. Yeah. And
going
back to the metrics,
just arena baseball is what it is. I got to say one thing about Tampa, though. It's unlike the Kingdome. The lights in Tampa are outstanding. It's a very well lit arena baseball.
Yeah, and the Metrodome also, it had some weird dimensions too, because of the football and multi-purpose stuff like that. I imagine a lot of those probably were difficult ones, not difficult to umpire in, but weird ones, like dimension-wise, because you had like football stadiums on top of a baseball stadium. It doesn't really work.
Right. Well, the Kingdome had this, and actually, the Mariners Park now has it down at the right field corner. There's a little kind of notch where a fair ball can kind of go where, like from the plate or even from first, as the first base umpire, when you go out on the ball, it'll actually go out of your view. It's in play. If it's, obviously a fair ball, it's still in play, but it goes out of your view. And so when we worked there, we always told the second base umpire, keep your eye on the ball, because the first base guy can't see it for a brief second when it goes, back in there. And if it's a catch, no catch type thing, you're gonna have to, help out from second to help see it, because, they're hidden for a little while. There's, you have not so much in the big leagues, although you get them at some places, but in the minor leagues, you used to have imaginary lines, right? Where it's a dead ball line. There's not a physical line there. But if it goes past, this area, that's a dead ball. Well, that's an imaginary line means there's no line. so, I mean, I had an argument in the minor leagues that I called the ball dead and advanced the runners. And the manager came out, he goes, it didn't go dead. I saw it from the, and I said, well, it's an imaginary line, right? And he goes, yeah. And I go, well, this is an imaginary argument. So, head back to the dugout, because that's what I got, and we're not going to talk about it anymore. Yeah. And, there's a lot of really outstanding parks. I think Pittsburgh has one of the nicest ballparks going. It's just beautiful with the city in the background and on the river like that. my first World Series was Yankees in San Diego. Well, San Diego was playing at at that time Jack Murphy Stadium, football stadium that they played out for years, and that was not. I mean, to show you how the configuration of that for baseball was not right. When you're working the plate, the dugouts usually, you just take a look and it's this way and it's this way. There, you actually look behind you because the dugouts were so close to behind. I mean, they weren't literally, but they were almost like they were behind you, watching pitches. When you're the first or third base umpire
honestly.
and you're looking down toward the plate,
Yeah.
beyond the plate, you're looking right into the dugout. This doesn't seem right.
They did not think of any safety feature for sure. I mean, like
No,
that,
no.
that's like a typical foul ball that goes straight back.
Oh
It's
yeah,
right
no,
there.
that's better watch
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
Right.
and remember, guys, it wasn't until just recently that they have any type of protection or anything in the. I mean, the dugouts used to be just wide
Open.
wide open.
Yeah.
And you get some guy gets fooled and rips one into the. I mean, I've seen guys. I mean, it's amazing to me more guys weren't hurt
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
because it was wide open.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on the stadium talk, I'm actually very curious. So you talked about, the dimensions, especially playing in the field, finding where to position. I was wondering, was there any stadiums where sun bothered you, especially ones like Milwaukee, where you have the glass in the back, and then depending on what time of day it is, you kind of see the sun and the shadows just creep in. Did that ever affect you at all?
Yeah, and Milwaukee's tough on those day games, especially, and it's really tough on the left side of the infield, the third base, shortstop side. For a window there where the for I don't know a couple innings or whatever, just really tough to pick up the ball. In Seattle, right down the right field line, like the second or third deck, they have a little cafe. They're called it Hit It Here Cafe, right? Where people can sit in there and watch and the game and everything. But it was a glass, in front, and so the sun would set, and for 12 15 minutes or so, maybe 20 minutes, depending on what time of year, it would just reflect right off that glass right down the line. I mean, if as a first base umpire, if the ball is hit and you turn to look for fair or foul, you're looking right basically into the sun, it seems like, because it's reflecting right off. And from the plate, the same thing. And God forbid if there was a base hit and plate the plate, they're throwing the ball the plate, because there's a good chance you're not going to pick it up until at all or until very late because of the reflection there. And it, I mean, I remember the first time I worked there. In fact, I was the second crew to go in there. They opened mid-season right after the All-Star game in Seattle in '99, and I was the second crew to go in there. And my plate game was the very first time, and it wasn't right in the first inning. It was like about the bottom of the second for about an inning and a half. This is when it was happening. And I looked up and I went, "Oh, you got to be kidding me!" I mean, it would be an absolute guess on a pole bender or something because where you're looking. I worked the plate in Baltimore in '97. It was a game 4 of a divisional series with Seattle, and Randy Johnson was pitching for the Mariners. And of course, like I said earlier, he's 6'11", and he's on that mound. Well, this was I believe it was a 3:00 in the afternoon start for television playoffs. There's a silver building in downtown Baltimore that you would never affect you with a normal. First of all, you rarely have 3:00 starts. You either have a 1:00 or maybe a 5:00 or a 7:00. But at a 3:00 in early October, where the sun is, the angle of the sun, and you have a 6'11" guy on a mound, his arm and his hand is coming out of this silver building that's being reflected. And I'd worked numerous play games in Baltimore. I never even realized that building was there until that day. In the first inning, Baltimore Mariners are hitting, and so 1, 2, 3, whatever. So now the Mariners come out to warm up, and I took a few warm up pitches from Johnson. Well, the very first pitch he threw, both the catcher and I, he goes boom, and we both went, oh my God. I mean, because the ball was coming right out of this reflection. It was like, and I'm thinking to myself, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, it's a nightmare. Shadows and stuff can be such a nightmare. And you hear it, the broadcasters will say, well, look at the shadows here. It's really tough to pick up the ball for the hitter, and this net. Well, yeah. Well, what about me? I mean, I mean,
More than one.
I'm not supposed to miss a pitch, right? And I can't even see a damn thing. And the catcher's the same way. He's trying to. I mean, and again, this was an issue for maybe, I don't know. He was on the mound. Then Mariners went. I think the all the first inning, bottom of the first, and for the part of the second inning, and then the sun changed and it wasn't an issue anymore. But it's stuff like that again, it's not an excuse, it's just reality. It's tough to see, and you've got to, that's not an excuse. You can't say, ball, I don't know, it's tough to see, sorry, I didn't see it. I mean, you can't. That's really not an answer. Or it can be, but it's not a very good one. So you just have to fight through it as best you can, and really slow down your timing to make sure you see everything before you call it, because it can be very deceiving. And by the way, that's the same situation could be on balls to the outfield. Was it a home run, or was there spectator interference or whatever? You may have a bunch of white shirts. Yeah, you may have a reflection of the sun off whatever that just happens to be right where you're looking. You may have shadows of some sort. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can affect how you see this certain play. And then let's be honest, it happens one time in real time, and is out in the outfield. So the closest covering umpire still may be a couple 100 feet away, depending on where it's at or how it plays out. And that's tough. Now, this, again, before replay, you just, you just had to go in, maybe we get together as a crew and say, I always thought, I was very happy when they started replay on border calls, because border calls meaning between the foul poles out in the outfield, because something like that would happen. Was it spectator interference? Was it a home run? I'm really not sure. So we'd all get together and what do you got? I got a home run. What do you got? I thought the spectator touched it. Okay. What do you got? I didn't see it. Okay. Now, both teams have seen it. They've seen it in several angles. The people in the stands, where all the monitors, they've seen it. Obviously, the people at home watching, they've all seen it. And the four guys that have to call it, okay, let's go with home run. Okay, great. I mean, it was like, it didn't make any sense to me, So, I mean, I was extremely happy when we started doing replays on those, because it was insane for us to try to make a decision, seeing it one time that quick, depending on whatever else is going on about 200 feet away. Yet you're the one that, don't miss it. Don't screw this up. It's like, okay. But, yeah, so stadiums can have some quirky things, and just time of day and certain things can also add to not being able to see a certain play or see something as clearly as you would hope.
For sure.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Grown up in and around like Pittsburgh, going to games at PNC as a kid, even now, all the light going, or get some bright days there. Light going off some of the glass in the buildings, for sure. It comes back right towards home plate sometimes. I can imagine it's extremely difficult to track a ball, especially trying to call pitches accurately. Yeah.
Well, right. And at the old Rangers, Texas Rangers, not the one they left a few years ago, but the other old one, they would not put dead center field. There's bleachers, and they have it painted. They had it painted green instead of the Texas blue or whatever. And they wouldn't put fans out there unless Nolan Ryan was pitching, because the walk up for Nolan, they would always sell more tickets, and they loved to pitch Nolan on Sunday nights. Most of the league played during the day on Sundays, but the Rangers in June, July, and August would play a 7:00 game. For obvious reasons, and for a while there, I think they're also playing 5:00 games, because of the heat and everything. Well, it's not a lot cooler at that time, and the humidity is still there. But now as a plate umpire, that batter's eye that they wouldn't put people in. Well, now Nolan's pitching and they put people in. So you have people walking, you have, again, white shirts, you have movement and stuff going on. You have the sun as it's, setting, or the reflection coming down, and trying to see pitches. Of course, they don't mind doing that when Nolan's pitching, because Nolan's pitching. Now their hitters have a tough time seeing too, but that's okay because Nolan's pitching. so so I had a couple times that I had that, and once was 4th of July, and that was, it was like, you like, thanks for all the help, you're setting this up really nice for me. Fenway, they used to do that at Fenway every once in a while when they would have a day game and a big crowd. They would go ahead and sell some seats up there. Yeah, and I mean, it's just like, there's people moving and people walking. There's like I said, white shirts and stuff, and you're just going, really, really.
Yeah, no, I don't that's one thing I don't understand about Fenway. It's an old park. Obviously, you had that area of seating they have tarped off a lot of times for the batter's eye, but whenever they open it, I can't imagine how any umpire would see the movement of the arm, where the ball is, where the ball's
well
going.
Obviously the hitters hate it,
Too, yeah.
and the catchers aren't thrilled about it, and of course we're not real happy either. So there's it doesn't happen a lot. I think I'm not even, well, maybe they still do it at Fenway, I don't know, but like, the most of the new stadiums now have a batter's eye area where there aren't seats. I mean,
Yeah, I've seen them just throw up a green something or
Yeah,
bushes.
no, they just had that tarp at Fenway. They still do. I don't
yeah,
understand why they didn't renovate that one. I know they want to keep it
Yeah.
the same, but at least put a batter's eye in, make it easier on everyone.
yeah. Well, should we have a batter's eye or sell more tickets? Okay. Well, I
Yeah,
think,
It's a business. There
I
you
know.
go. Yeah.
yeah, I think we figured that one out. Seattle did, they put they researched this and everything. It's a black, probably the best batter's eye in the league. It's a special black honeycomb, sucks up the light thing. And I don't know what the science is behind it, but it's certainly, especially on a day game, it certainly is a nice background. It does seem like, if it's really bright, it does seem like it just kind of sucks up the light in that black hole, I guess. So that one, I wish they all were that way, so it would be a lot easier.
I know City Field has one like that too, where it's just like the black area with the apple thing that comes out. But I think
Right.
theirs is pretty good too, I would imagine.
Yeah. City, I didn't have any, I don't remember any issues there. But there's some beautiful ballpark. I mean, it was such an upgrade when San Diego went down to the gas lamp district in Petco. San Francisco has a beautiful park there on the bay. Seattle again. I really enjoy Denver. I mean, it's a big ballpark with the thin air and stuff, but it's just, you got the Rocky Mountains in the back there, and the new park in Minnesota, obviously a extremely good upgrade from the Metrodome. Milwaukee, I don't, it's fine enough to work there, but it is a little bit of a bitch on those Sunday getaway days, or any day game that you have there can be a little bit challenging. Baltimore, from I had the old Memorial Stadium that was just a lot of history and stuff, but a dump. So there's a lot of good ballparks, and they've done a great job, and I was fortunate enough to see a lot of them.
For sure.
Yeah. So talking about ballparks, and you talk about your experience in the playoffs umpiring, especially the World Series, I kind of want to focus on that now, especially we've been talking about dome ballparks. I mean, I don't know if it's one of the first World Series in a while, besides 2020 being an excuse, where like you can have a game at a dome no matter where you are, either if it's Texas or Arizona. I find that pretty fascinating. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the thing about both of them that I like is a dome, but it's not a permadome. In other words, you can open it up if the conditions warrant that, and that's really the ideal type thing, to where rain's not going to delay you or postpone you, but when it's nice, you can be outside and not be in the, like I said, the tomb and in the kingdom or whatever. So retractable domes is the way to go. In Seattle, it's not sealed. It's just a canopy, basically. If it's bad weather, it comes over.
I
So you
find
still,
that I find that crazy
That's
that
such
that
a
is what they
cool.
landed on.
They like
well,
roll off almost.
it's not bad. I mean, you still have the elements to a point. I mean, you still have some wind, although when it's on there, the wind is a little different than if it wasn't. And you still have the temperature. You still have to bundle up if it's cool or whatever. But you're just keeping the rain out, and it's kind of nice. I kind of like that. When they first opened that park, I was working in, I believe it was that second series, where they had not closed. All the games had been open. Well, we had a day game, and it was open, but there was, about the third inning or fourth inning, whatever. The groundskeeper came and said, "Hey, listen, we got some weather coming in, and so we want to close this thing." Well, we had never closed it. I said, "Well, how long does it take?" I think it took 17 minutes, depending on to completely close it, depending on the wind and everything. He said, "But it's you won't even notice it. I mean, it's very slow, and it's not going to distract it." But we weren't really sure, and I believe, I could be wrong. I believe it was Boston that was there, but they said, well, because the rain hadn't got there yet. It was partly cloudy, so there's a little bit of sunbreak. So they were concerned about the shadows as it's closing from center field toward third base line and home plate or whatever. Would the shadows be affecting the hitter, somehow or something? And so they were like, um, you have to stop it if that's the case. I said, I'll tell you what, if I'm back here, if I think it's a distraction, then we'll stop the game and get the thing closed and start up again. But I've been told that's not going to be an issue. Everybody has, said that we can close this thing during a game, and it's not going to be a problem. And as it turned out, it wasn't. It's you really, a lot of times you say, oh, I guess they're starting to close it, and then a few minutes later you go, oh, it's closed. I mean, it's like you don't even realize it. But I worked the first series in Skydome in Toronto when they first opened in '89, and that was one of the most hilarious things. They have, the way that closed, it kind of came from center field out over the playing surface, but the last, and then another little section kind of comes and does the home plate, kind of pitcher's mound area of the playing field. So it's like two little sections. Well, they said, "Hey, we got weather coming in. We're gonna close it." And this was the first time that we had a dome, that we can close a dome in a game. Is it really, pretty cool? So, just the engineering of it and everything. But they started closing it, and they should have started a few minutes earlier. It started raining. I was at first base. It was pouring down rain, but the only rain toward the end was just at home plate. And Richie Garcia was my crew chief, and he was working the plate. And we're out there, we're laughing because he's getting poured on, and everybody else is dry. And he's like, we have a $1 zillion dome, and I'm getting, why am I getting rained on? I mean, it was pretty funny to watch. But weather can be such a bitch for umpires because you're only as good as the information you're given. I've had information that you're getting during the game. You're getting it from the groundskeeper, who you got to trust. Some are better than others because whatever's advantageous for their team, they may want to tell you, whatever it is. So there are some guys in the league that you don't trust at all because you know the stories. There's other guys that you do, that they've always been straight up with you, but you're only good as the information you have, and none of us control the weather. And so I've had situations where we'll be fine. There might be a couple drops, but we can play through it. And next thing you know, we're building an arc out in center field. It's raining so much, I mean, it's like, what, I didn't pull the guys because you said it was just a few, and all of a sudden it's pouring. It's like, what's going on? I've had times where I remember we tarped the field in Cleveland. They said it's a huge weather burst. The wind is going to be bad, so we want to get this thing tarped, because if we wait too late, we can't get the tarp down with the weather, the wind and everything. It's going to pour like a son of a gun for about 40 minutes, but then there's nothing behind it, and we'll be fine. So Oakland was there, and they were rallying in the top of the fifth. Um, they were behind, and they had runners on. They had scored a couple of runs, and I get this information. He said, "We got to do this now." So I tell him to bring it out. I mean, it's not raining a drop, right? It's totally bone dry. And Art Howe is the manager for Oakland, and he's like, "What? We're rallying here. We're swinging the bats, and now you're tarping a dry." I said, "Art, trust me on this. It's gonna come down, and it's gonna come down hard. We're trying to save the field because afterwards there's nothing behind it, and we can play this thing." And so we tarp it, and the wind starts picking up, and nothing, and nothing, and nothing, and you're just going.
Oh.
And now by this time it's tarp, so our room is right down by the home plate. So I had a chance to glance at the radar, and it was just, I mean, colorful as heck, and you knew it was there, but it wasn't hitting us. And Art's like, I mean, there's steam coming out of his head, and then they said it would be there in about 2 minutes. It was probably 5. Those 3 minutes seemed like 6 hours, but when it hit, I mean, it hit exactly what they said. The wind was flying, and it just dumped. 20 or I don't know, 40 minutes later, it stopped, got the field ready. We were fine the rest of the game. But if we hadn't done that, and if they had trouble getting it on the field, we could have lost the field. And so you got to keep things in mind. We lost a field in New York one time, Yankee Stadium, because it was they couldn't get the tarp on. The wind and everything, and it just saturated the field. We had to play a doubleheader the next day. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, so so a dome is nice, but it's a really nice when it's a retractable one. So when it is nice weather, it's great. You're outside. Baseball should be outside, but when it's not, you can shut that thing, and you never have to worry about having long delays or anything like that.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, we gotta close it out with World Series talk. It's roughly 8 o'clock Eastern time right now. We are recording this on November 1st, which means that the game has started. You got Zach Gallen and Nathan Eovaldi. I need both of your picks, starting with you, Dale. What do you think will happen tonight? You think the Rangers will secure the series for the first World Series, or you think the Diamondbacks will let it play on just a little bit more?
Well, let's put things in perspective here. I believe the Rangers this postseason have not lost a game on the road. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes,
they're undefeated on the road, and Eovaldi. I mean, it seems like they could wrap it up tonight. But as an umpire, I don't predict that. All I'm predicting is, or hoping, is that if it's just one more game, or if they go back to Texas to finish it out, just no controversy, nothing happens to the umpires. There's no anytime something happens where you can say, well, the umpire screwed us and that's why we lost World Series, that's not a good thing for us. So when I watch these playoffs and World Series, my always my constant thought is just whoever wins. I just hope that nothing controversial happens. And that's a pretty boring answer, but that's what you get. That's what you get from an umpire.
Answer right there. That's very truthful.
A lot of people, they'll find something no matter what.
Welcome to my world.
Now, I think, honestly, I mean, the Diamondbacks, they've been doing it all year. They've been answering back. They call them the answer backs this year. They've been coming back every single game. Whenever it seems like they're down and out, they come back. They find a way to win. I think they'll survive tonight. Will they win the series? I don't know, but I think they survive tonight.
They are a great story. I mean, they barely made the tournament. I mean, the last seed, and what do? They knock off what, Milwaukee and the Dodgers
and Philly, yeah.
And I mean, people. I mean, I've got a good friend in Phoenix, and after they wrapped it up and they were going to the series, we were texting, and I said, "Is the town going crazy?" He goes, "Well, yeah, but no one really expected them to even make the playoffs."
No one was prepared what to do. You're like, oh my God, we did it. And They did it. They swept both of them too. They 2-0 the Brewers and 3-0 the Dodgers. So, I mean, that was like, boom, that was quickest series you could have to get to the CS.
Yeah. Hard-fought series against Philly. And then here they are. I mean, like I said, I can't see them going out that easy tonight. I think they'll win tonight. Low scoring game, but I think they'll win tonight.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Like I said, whatever happens, just let's have the players be the talk and not some real or imagined umpire screw up.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
for sure. For sure.
definitely. I think that's perfect way to close. I really want to thank you for your time, Dale. Always great to have you back. So many great stories.
Thank you so
Everyone
much.
watching this, the book is truly fascinating. That's not just me saying it because Dale's here and I'm like, I gotta say it. Like, it's truly fascinating. I've referenced it to multiple people. It's the truest story you can get, more than someone talking about it on a video. I mean, getting it straight from you, Dale, straight from the umpire. Like, no one knows it better than you. So, highly recommend. Still have it right here on me. It sits on my desk. The umpire is out. And
Very good, very good. Well, just a quick plug. It's also an audio book. I did the narration on that. You can get that at all the normal places. You can go to my website, umpiredalescott.com. There's information about the book, about where you can get it, and all kinds of stuff. So I appreciate it, guys. Always fun to come on with you guys anytime. Just let me know, and we can kill another hour talking about God knows what.
Well, for sure. Thanks. It's so nice to pick your brain, hear what stuff's like from an umpire's perspective. So thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a treat, absolutely. And I'll have to read that book because I haven't gotten a chance to read it yet. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much.
You got it, guys.